All right, so this is like my 50th time trying to record this because the other times I have gone too long, but we are going to try something a little bit different here. With the NBA season around the corner, we are going to do another annual edition of the Sly Hooper preseason tier rankings. We are going to tier the teams in both the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference, and in today's video, we are going to tier the Western Conference. There are 7 tiers, 15 teams. I'm going to reveal all the teams in each tier at once, give a brief explanation on why I have them ranked the way I have them. In the other recordings, I tried to reveal one team at a time, then try to give a brief explanation, and I would still end up going like a minute 30 when I really wanted to keep it 30 seconds. So I figured this would be a quicker way to do it. I want to get these tier list videos up because I am also going to be previewing a lot of teams in their own separate videos, but these tier lists are just preseason. It's fun, kind of a thing where I want to see how the teams look heading into the season. Obviously, these are probably going to be wrong as the season goes on. By the way, before I get going here, today we got an unexpected retirement announcement, maybe the Woj bomb of all Woj bombs, but Adrien Wardowski, insider extraordinaire, both at Yahoo, then moving on to ESPN, has retired. It seems like, the rigors of being the best insider in the business. Sounds like the rigors of that and keeping up with contacts and all that stuff and news breaking and all that took a toll on him. So naturally, he chose a less stressful job, aka being the GM of a basketball program at his alma mater, St. Bonaventure, which, I guess if you compare stress levels, that is way less stressful than being an NBA insider. But congrats to Woj. Seems like a dream job. And yeah, he is part of the NBA lexicon universe. When you think of Woj, you think of Woj bombs and news breaking, 1 a.m. news breaking trades and all that stuff. So let's get going with this Western Conference tier list. I have 7 tiers here, like I mentioned, and the first tier we have is the 60-win contender tier, and I'm only revealing one team in this tier, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Simple explanation, the Thunder were the number 1 seed last year as the youngest team in NBA history. I thought this offseason they upgraded, trading away Josh Giddey, who was really the only weak link in the starting lineup, for Alex Caruso. Then you sign Isaiah Hartenstein. That gives the Thunder the ability to play multiple different ways, always have shooting on the floor at all times, and they could play a different type of style of offense. Whenever, the driving kick game doesn't work, they can audible to something else. But I think this team's going to win 60-plus games and run away with the number 1 seed. Next tier is the other contenders tier, and we have 4 teams in this tier, and I'm going to reveal them all at once here. We have the Mavericks first, and then the Timberwolves second, then the Nuggets third, then the Memphis Grizzlies. The Mavericks, I think they deserve to be at the top of this tier because they were the ones that came out of the West. I do think they improved. Timberwolves, self-explanatory, elite defense. I actually like the Joe Ingles signing to replace Kyle Anderson, and I think Rob Dillingham's going to be interesting. The Nuggets, they still have the best player in the world. They still have the best 2-man game in the world. Don't like that they have been bleeding out surrounding talent the last few seasons, and that's why I have them a little bit lower, but they still have Jokic. And then the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that kind of, escaped the minds of NBA fans because the basketball gods just unleash their wrath on this team, health-wise, off-the-court issues, all that stuff. But when you look at that squad now, they're healthy. Marcus Smart, hopefully he can stay healthy. And then guys like Vince Williams, who got, playing time with all the injuries, were able to benefit. The G.G. Jackson injury does suck and just reminds us that the basketball gods are always lurking around the corner, even after an injury-riddled season. I think the Grizzlies are going to be right back on track to being contenders, and I do consider them a threat to come out of the West still. I'm always high on the Grizzlies. Third tier we have is the I can't quit you, yet tier, and I have 2 teams in this tier, the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Clippers. Kind of self-explanatory teams here. The Suns have a big 3, or Devin Booker and Kevin Durant a big 2 until Bradley Beal, can consistently stay healthy. The big 3 really didn't play together that much last year, but loved the offseason they actually had. I thought they improved on the margins very well. Savvy signings, getting Trey Jones, getting Monty Morris and all that. And I think Mike Budenholzer is going to be an upgrade over Frank Vogel. As far as the Clippers go, They still have Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, and I know there's going to be health concerns and stuff, but when those guys are healthy, and they were for most of the regular season last year, they are going to be a top-tier offense. And I think this roster has a pathway to becoming a top 10 defense. They still have a lot of switchable wings, bringing Nick Batum back, bringing in Derrick Jones Jr., bringing in Chris Dunn, who I don't know how much he's going to play, but per minute, he's one of the best defenders in the NBA. And they still have Ty Lue until like a catastrophic injury happens, which I will admit is very possible for both of these teams, given the age of their star players. I still like these teams a lot, and I think they're going to win a lot of games, and I think on any given night in a regular season, they're going to give any team in the West hell. I just think when it comes to a potential deep playoff run or a potential conference finals or finals run, I think these two teams don't have what it takes to beat out the other 5 teams. Next tier we have is called the Playin Runs Through California. And I made a quick edit. I had originally 3 teams on here. Now we're going to have 4. And you'll see the 4 up here, and you'll see one of them isn't a California team and definitely a surprise. I have the Sacramento Kings first, the Warriors second, and the Lakers third, and fourth, I have the San Antonio Spurs. Now let's address the last team in this tier, the San Antonio Spurs. A lot of this is me banking in the fact that I think Victor Wembanyama is going to be edging close to the top 10 rankings in the NBA this year. I think he's going to be the defensive player of the year. I think his offensive game will improve. I like the adults in the room they added to the team. Usually all-time transcendent players by their second or third year turn into a superstar, and by virtue that means the team will be lifted up. Even though this team was literally in the lottery last year and were one of the worst teams in the NBA, in Victor's minutes they were not one of the worst teams in the NBA. The Kings, I have them above the Warriors and Lakers. I just like that the Kings shook some shit up. They added DeMar DeRozan. I think that'll diversify the offense a little bit. The Warriors, the roster's kind of in flux. They have a lot of players and recognizable rotation players that I like, but I just wonder how it's all going to mix and mash together. Steph Curry and Draymond Green are older, but they can still get the job done. By the way, I think the Kings, Warriors, and Lakers, they're all going to finish above 500. It's just the West is that deep, and I think the Kings as a team are slightly more cohesive and talented than the Warriors and Lakers right now. The Lakers, they're one of the teams I am least high on. They had insane health luck last year, and they made no improvements in the offseason. They drafted Dalton Knecht. They gave Max Christie a contract extension, even though he could not crack the playoff rotation this past playoffs. JJ Redick, don't know how he's going to be as a rookie head coach, quite frankly. None of us do. But I do think the Lakers will be a couple of wins better just by virtue of JJ Redick not being Darvin Ham, and he'll play the right lineups immediately. I'm sure he'll diversify the offense a little bit. But I don't like this Lakers team or their chances of coming out of the West, even though they have arguably the greatest player of all time and one of the best big men of all time. We shall see, though. But with the Spurs, I do think they have a chance of making the playoffs via the play-in. They'll win a lot more regular season games than people think, and you could see them in the mix in the play-in seeds. Next tier I have is the play-in to the play-in runs through the South. And in this tier, I did have the Spurs ranked first in this tier, but I moved them up. But I have the Rockets and the New Orleans Pelicans. Both of these teams are very interesting to me. They have a lot of good players on the roster. I just wonder how they are all going to mix and match. The Rockets literally have like 12 or 13 guys that are really good. Ime Udoka came in, changed the culture. Rockets got to 500. The injuries, unfortunately, last year, especially to Alperen Şengün, it was killer. You did get to find out Amen Thompson is pretty good as a small ball 5 with his athleticism and handle. Hey, look, my tiers are probably going to be wrong. One of these teams is going to crash the tier above them, and I think the Rockets do have a very good chance of doing that. I just wonder how the rotation's going to shake out. Guys like Tari Eason are coming back. What's Jalen Green going to look like? Is he going to be able to build off the strong end to the season that he had last year? How is Reed Shepherd going to be incorporated? There's a lot of moving parts with the Rockets, a lot of players that I like, and I just wonder how Ime Udoka is going to put it all together again. Pelicans, a team that I really liked last year because of all the wings that they had, really just am not as high on them as I was before. I think there are a few log jams on this roster just in terms of roster construction. I think some trades need to happen. The Brandon Ingram thing hasn't been resolved yet. What's going to happen there? Is that going to linger throughout the season? But I just don't like that the Pelicans, who had a bunch of wings and had a path to being a really good defense like they were last year, I don't think they have that same path. You still have Herb Jones, you still have Trey Murphy, but a lot of those lineups the Pelicans had last year, you surround 3 wings with Zion and a 3-point shooter, the Pelicans were cooking. And then they could be able to play different styles because they had Jonas Valanciunas. They don't have Valanciunas anymore. They brought in Daniel Tice. It looks like he's going to be the starting center, but is CJ McCollum going to come off the bench? How is DeJounte Murray going to fit in all of this? We forget the Pelicans traded for DeJounte Murray. It was like way early in the offseason. That was a big thing. I just don't know how it's all going to fit. But I will say, for the first time in a few seasons, Zion isn't on my list of concerns for the Pelicans. Seeing the pictures of him, he looks in shape. He played 70 games last year. Unfortunately, he got hurt in the play-in game against the Lakers, where he absolutely dominated the Lakers and then got hurt in the late stages of that game. That fucking sucked. But I just don't know how this roster is going to shake out, and I think they're a move or two away. Trey Murphy needs to start, though, and I don't know if that means bringing CJ McCollum off the bench and starting Jose Alvarado and DeJounte Murray, along with Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, and Zion at the 5. Is he going to be the backup small ball 5? Defensively, I'm just not sure how this works. And offensively, it'll be a little clunky, but they have a lot of good players. I just don't think this team right now isn't as good as last year's team. I actually think there's a chance that their record could be a little worse than last year. And in the West, sometimes that matters and you slide down. And then to round it out, I'll just reveal the last 2 tiers. We got the missing out again tier and the lottery again tier, and there's 1 team in each. In the missing out again tier, we have the Utah Jazz. Are the Jazz really going to do this thing again where they look pretty frisky in the first 2 months of the season and then decide to shut it down and then end up with a lower lottery pick than what they expect? Because I don't know what the plan is. They signed Markkanen to that extension. Very good player. Love Lauri Markkanen. But you have John Collins on that roster still, Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, and then you have all these young guys behind them. Is it time for them to take over the reins a little bit and just go into rebuild mode? Especially with the way people are talking about this upcoming draft class and the 2026 draft class. I just wonder what the plan is there in Utah and what Danny Ainge is doing. But they're going to be one of those teams where they are too good to be in the lottery and just bad enough to miss out on the play-in. And if they do that for a 3rd year in a row, it's like, what are we doing here? But I like Keontae George. Maybe Walker Kessler bounces back in his 3rd year because he was injured a bit last year and kind of slid down after a really good rookie year. You want to see what you have with Cody Williams, Taylor Hendricks, getting a steal in Kyle Filipowski, which a lot of draft nerds love that pick over the summer. I just think personally, I would have been blown up this Utah team a long time ago because I do think they have some young players that I really like and I want to see how they develop. They can't be stuck on that treadmill. And then in the lottery again tier, we have the Portland Trail Blazers. I don't think they will be one of the absolute worst teams in the NBA. That distinction goes to the Wizards and the Brooklyn Nets and maybe the Chicago Bulls. But at least the Blazers have a fun young team. I do like them getting Denny Avdia. That was a sneaky good trade. That was a trade where if you're an NBA fan of another team, that trade kind of makes you upset. Hopefully Scoot Henderson can make some strides. Shaedon Sharpe, can he stay healthy? I want to see what he looks like in his 3rd year. And then fringe players like Duwop Reith. I was a really big fan of Duwop Reith last year. He made one of my role player videos. Tumani Kamara, underrated defender. Love him. Can Chris Murray make strides and turn himself into a very good rotational wing? Will Matisse Thybulle fool us again into being a really good 3-point shooter for the first 2 months of the season? There are still fun things to look forward to in Portland. They have a lot of offensive talent, and, on any given night, who knows? Especially when you're playing in Portland, their fans are really loyal. They love their team. There's exciting stuff that can happen, but they are going to be in the lottery again, but they will not be the worst lottery team in the NBA, and that is something. That's it for my tier list. Leave a comment below if you disagree, scream at me, say that I hate your team, say that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, all that good stuff. It's all love. Make sure you stay tuned for the Eastern Conference tier list, and then be on the lookout for a lot of previews, award predictions, and all that good stuff.